Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Tuesday show, where every week we take a look at the 1980s WWF LJN Wrestling Superstars. This week we are on Series 2, a 1985 release. Now, today's video is actually going to be much shorter because Series 2 was a very small release, only 6 figures. Now, next week, when we dive into Series 3, a bunch of wrestlers, but we're also going to take a look at a bunch of managers as well. I might have to split that into either 2, possibly even 3 videos because we are going to be looking at 17 characters next week. I might do 2 videos. 17 characters, so I might do like 9 and 8 for those videos. So last week, 9 figures with their variants. It took about, I think it was like an hour and 17 minutes. So yeah, we'll probably break it down into 2 videos. So today's video is 6 figures. We're probably looking at about maybe an hour, possibly 50 minutes to get through today's video. So it should be, again, a much more smoother video. I don't know why Series 2 was such a small release, but I mean, there are actually some pretty incredible pieces. Probably 2 of my top 15 figures are in this series. So, I mean, is it the most important release from the series? No. But you did get some really killer pieces, and um, let's just not gibber on. Let's just dive right into the figures, and let's talk about them as we bring them up. So, first one we're gonna dive into is, of course, Andre the Giant. So, Andre, obviously, part of the initial 5 figures that were released in 1984 as part of that. Of course, Andre the Giant, larger than life legend in WWF, in basically professional wrestling everywhere. In France, in Japan, in the United States. So, wherever you go, Andre, again, there's a reason why he's called the eighth wonder of the world, right? So, Andre the Giant, you got to give him a second figure. And he is absolutely one of Vince McMahon's, one of his most favorite and most coveted wrestlers. And when Andre the Giant actually died, and you hear Vince McMahon doing interviews and talking about Andre, and when Vince starts tearing up, that's not some BS tear jerk reaction. This is legitimate emotion. That just tells you how much Andre actually meant to that man. So this is somebody he actually legitimately cared about. Andre the Giant, there's a couple of things that you will notate about this figure compared to like the first series. Obviously, one of the things that people did not like about the first series release, well, yeah, he had the big afro, which he was synonymous for a lot of years. But after the famous haircut, you wanted to re-release the figure with what they call the short hair Andre. So when you look at the back of the card, obviously this was a much later release. So this does say copyright 1985, but again, these figures do get released periodically throughout the year. So not only do they show a bunch of Series 2, but you also see a bunch of Series 3 characters on here as well. So this is a reproduced card back based on the characters on the background, right? So Andre is one of only, what is it, 3 or 4 characters in the line that actually gets multiple figures. Andre the Giant got 3 different figures in the line. Hulk Hogan, if you include his white and red shirt in Series 5, he technically got 3 figures in the line. And Tito Santana got 2 figures in the line. SD Jones, he got a couple of variants, but from the same series. So you could toss that up as 1 figure, or you could toss that up as, 2 figures. Because it's a different paint scheme, you can call it two figures. Now, when you start looking at like Corporal Kirchner, I still call that one figure because it's still the same paint scheme and everything. It's just different, beard, stubble, non-stubble. Guys like the three Jimmy Harts with the variation with the paint on the megaphone. I still consider that to be one figure. So that's pretty much it. That's really the only figures. Oh, the referee. The referee, even though he came out in the same series together, because it's a different paint scheme, I consider the referee to be two figures. But that's it. So that's what I love about LJN. Generally, most figures, most characters got one figure, and that was it. I love Hasbro, okay? Hasbro is my line from childhood. That's what I grew up playing with. It will always be my number one favorite toy line. But the one downside with Hasbro is they kept reproducing the same characters over and over again. It's like, how many times do you need a Hulk Hogan or a Ted DiBiase or a Macho Man or an Ultimate Warrior, a Mr. Perfect, an Undertaker, a Bret Hart, etc.? So that kind of got irritating. And when you look at modern day companies like the big rubber guys, like the grapples and gimmicks, like zombie sailor toys, right? So we look at these LJN style companies, like these Hasbro style companies. That's what's kind of killing me with these companies. Love the companies most of the time, but that reproduction of the same characters over and over again, it's kind of defeating the purpose of. It's kind of defeating the fun of collecting when you're reproducing the same characters over and over, especially if it's the same figure. At least with Hasbro, like with Hulk Hogan as an example, at least you got different figures. You know, you might have gotten the same character, but you always got different figures, and that was fun. And that was exciting. Series 1 Hulk Andre, like I said, different figure, all in all. Even his arms were a little bit spread further apart. So I always coveted the Series 1 Andre a little more than the Series 2. Aesthetically, yeah, the Series 2 Andre, probably a better figure in that essence. He doesn't have that elongated head, forehead, and face. But when it came to playable figures, when I talk about the most perfect LJN figures, I kind of put Series 1, 2, and 6 Andre. I kind of all group them all and under that number 3 rating. 3A, 3B, 3C, it doesn't matter. They're all just number 3. In essence, yeah, Blackstrap is probably the one I would probably say is the best. But when I talk about my favorite Andre, I usually say Series 1. And plus, because of the arm positioning, I think Andre number 1 is probably the best playable figure. But a Series 2 Andre. Now, if you go on auction and you try to win yourself an Andre, especially in this condition where he's basically a mint figure, a Series 2 Andre can normally go for around $75 to $90. So a Series 2 Andre is a very expensive figure. So, a pretty beat up or pretty decent Series 1 will normally go for around $20, $30. Again, on auction, especially if it's minty, a Series 1 can go up, $50 to $75 if someone really wants it. So, uh, Series 2, if he's a beater, he can go anywhere from 50 to around $75. If he's minty, $75 to 90, even as high as 100, 125. So, but $75 is usually about the price range I'd give about a Series 2 figure. So, definitely one of the more expensive figures in the line for non-Series 6 figures. But a Series 2 Andre, in my opinion, definitely one of the more valuable figures. Definitely one of the figures that I think is well worth the price. Series 2 also gives you your Brutus Beefcake. Now, it does show Brutus Beefcake on the card, right? What I really like is in Series 6, when you look on the back of the card, it finally says Brutus the Barber Beefcake. And when we finally start looking at the Series 6 figures, both the newer figures as well as the re-releases, we're gonna finally start looking at the back of the picture where it starts showing Barber, and I think that's pretty awesome. Kind of jumping ahead of myself a little bit. If you actually come across a Brutus beefcake on Black Card, I've only seen one on eBay, and the seller wanted like 30 grand for it. I don't know if that's actually the value for a Brutus beefcake Black Card, but like I said, I've only seen that just that one figure. I've never seen another one on Black Card, but well, that's a lie. There is one YouTuber that makes a lot of videos where he shows up all of his black cards and basically all of his carded collection, and they're all signed. And then he shows off like all his Remcos that are all signed as well. And he has obviously the entire collection, all black cards, re-releases, new figures, all signed. And I've seen his collection where he has got a Black Brutus, but actually one for actually for sale. Yeah, but that's a holy grail piece. That's one I really want. But anything that's on Black Card re-releases, Axe, Honky Tonk Man, Brutus, Macho Man, those are all pieces I'm definitely looking for to add to the collection. And this is a 13 back, so this is a first run, first release. So that's pretty nice to get this one right here. Really nice card. Only bad side is the bubbles. It's darkened, a little bit yellow. Not perfect in the bubble, but it's definitely a better one for the collection. And Walmart, $6.97. It's kind of funny. Kind of looking at that Walmart card or that sticker. When I was a kid, I don't know how old I was. Maybe 15, 16, 17. I don't know. It was probably like the first time back in Chicago that I ever stepped foot into a Walmart. Like, I never heard of Walmart when I was a kid. And I have to assume that, Walmart's everywhere. So Walmart had to be in Chicago for like ever. But as teenagers, as kids, we never shopped at Walmart ever. And I had to be like a full grown teenager by time the first time my family ever went to a Walmart. And think that Walmart has been around since like the 50s or something. That's insane. Now, I do got a couple of Brutus Beefcake figures here, and I do have the two figures displayed because I don't know if this is a legitimate variation. So this was the original figure I had. If you notice, his pants are a little bit light pink, where this figure has a much more darker shade of pink or almost purple pants. Kind of, I don't know if you see that real big difference. Now, given that this is a played with figure, obviously, over the years, where this one, he actually has like little mold stains. Now, this one, I actually bought this one on card, and the card was kind of coming apart. So this one was literally like brand new, taken right out of the bubble. When you touch this one is like really freaking sticky. It's like crazy sticky, but like literally right out of the package. So I actually sent the package to a friend, and there is another Brutus beefcake that he is going to customize to kind of look like the Mega Maniac Brutus from Hasbro, and he's going to seal that one up for me. So I'm going to have a Mega Maniac Brutus Beefcake LJN custom figure mint on card. So that's the idea of why I bought that kind of coming apart MOC Brutus figure. And obviously, I didn't want to destroy or ruin a mint figure, so I took this one out. But maybe that's the only reason why there's that discoloration or that, why this one's darker. But when I looked at the two figures, like I said, this one is much more purple, much darker pink than this one. So, but you're always seeing that difference where there's always different shade of color differentiation. You see it on Jesse Ventura. I have like 16,000 Jesse Venturas up on my shelf because when you look at the figures, there's always that different shade of pink and to the color, or to the mustache or beard or hair. So, is it all legitimate, or is it just the way that the factory has painted? Different depending on which factory they came from, right? So, but I'm gonna put this one down. Actually, I'm gonna go with this one because this one's actually more filled in. You can actually see all of the dots and everything on the figure. The other one obviously isn't all complete because the back is like missing all of this. Bruce Beefcake, he is one of those figures that he's got a decent playable pose. I mean, it's not the greatest pose in the world, but it's one of those figures that you can definitely look at and have some good fun matches. Now, Bruce Beefcake and Greg Valentine. Now, the Dream Team do have their own, 2-pack tag team set from LJN. Unfortunately, I do not have that 2-pack, and there are a few tag team sets, and you guys could pretty much tell exactly which ones they are. Uh, Very few people are going to have those tag team sets, i.e., Strike Force, the Killer Bees, the Dream Team, and Heart Foundation. Those four tag team sets, really, nobody's going to have those four because all four of those tag team sets, if you buy them individually, are probably going to cost you around $4,000 or $5,000 per set. And who out here is going to spend $20,000 or $30,000 to buy those four sets? You know, it's insane. Maybe if somebody has all of them and one person is willing to buy all of them, maybe that seller is willing to work with them and sell them to them for a fraction of the price, and maybe they'll let them go for like $11,000, $15,000 because they can sell them to them through like PayPal or something, and they'd rather take like 15,000 now guaranteed as opposed to trying to sell them through like eBay one at a time and taking all this loss anyways. So, but I don't know if I will ever pick those up, but it would have to be like severely marked down to actually get all those sets. But I think Greg Valentine and Bruce Beefcake 2-pack is probably going to be the most logical for me to ever pick up. You kind of look at Bruce Beefcake, he kind of, he looks like either Jay Leno or Sean Penn in the face. So every time I look at this figure, that's kind of like the comparison I make more than Bruce Beefcake. Of course, when I think Bruce Beefcake, I always think about long hair Brutus. So kind of seeing him with like the short hair, it's weird. Now, obviously, when you look at Random Treasures and you see like their new Bruce Beefcake, very similar in play pose. So any kid that had these in the 80s, to play with, again, play pose is very similar. So it's nice that they kind of mimic this in that sense, but it has a much better, more realistic to the Bruce Beefcake that we all kind of familiarize ourselves with nowadays. Bruce Beefcake is figure number 2. Number 3, Greg Valentine. And this is, I guess, another first run figure with a 13 back, which is awesome. I think Greg Valentine, when I was first, when I first decided to collect some MLC figures, originally that back door leading into the little storage room. At one point, I said I wanted to collect at least. I said 5 LJNs mint on card, and it was important to me to have at least 5. I knew I wanted at least one black card, and I think maybe Hulk Hogan would have been one of them. So I think Greg Valentine probably would have been one of those figures that I probably would have wanted as a carded figure. And Here is the thing with the Greg Valentine figure. So obviously in the very early stages of collecting, so around, I don't know, September, October 2021, when I first started collecting the LJNs, obviously I picked up Greg Valentine because I needed Greg Valentine for the collection, right? I wanted to complete the whole collection, so I needed him for that purpose. I knew Greg Valentine from the 90s, obviously during the era of Hasbro. You know, I watched him as a kid in the 90s. You think Greg Valentine in the 80s and then comparing to Greg Valentine in the 90s, not the same character. You think about him in the 80s, tag team champion Greg Valentine, Intercontinental champion Greg Valentine, this Greg Valentine with these amazing feuds and everything. That was not my Greg Valentine. That was not the Valentine that I remember from childhood. To me, he was not not a mid card. Well, he may have been a mid card guy, but he wasn't like your mega superstar. That he was not anybody you gravitated towards. Okay, he wasn't a jobber type. I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't rate him like on the same level as like a Coco Beware or anything, but like no, like he wasn't anybody flashy, anybody that you gravitate toward. Like I said, he was just someone who came in and did his job, and that was about it. You know, he beat the guys he was supposed to beat, and then he lost to the guys he was supposed to lose to. But I looked at the figure, I'm like, it's an average figure. I mean, it didn't do anything for me. Nothing flashy, nothing special. Uh, it is what it is. But in March, or yeah, towards the end of February, early March 2022, um, right around the time I created this channel, and I was talking about, you know, obviously I created this channel because I wanted to do the my favorite LJN tournament, and the whole purpose of creating the channel because I wanted to do that tournament because I wanted to talk about the figures and everything, right? I didn't want to just blindly create a my favorite LJN tournament to talk to myself. I wanted to kind of communicate with, you know, like-minded people, right? Have a community to talk to and share my thoughts and opinions with and hear other people's thoughts. And since I never had these figures as a kid, didn't know anything about these figures, you know, post or pre 2021. Obviously, I had to wrestle these figures to kind of get a feel for the figures, kind of see how they handle, how they operate, and everything. So I put together a few Royal Rumble matches and trying and get a feel for the figures and how they played. And during that time period, before I started that, I thought Greg Valentine was a terrible figure. His play pose did nothing for me. I thought this sucked. And this is the quintessential don't judge a book by its cover type figure. Because during those Royal Rumbles, Greg Valentine ended up being easily, hands down, no doubt about it, the most utilized LGN figure ever. And when I say most utilized, I mean this guy would be like my number two entrant, number three entrant, whatever. And like he would be in that Royal Rumble all the way into the end. Be like one of the last two, last three standing type of deal. I mean, I wouldn't make him my winner or anything, but he would be in there all the way to the end because I didn't want to eliminate him. I had so much fun using this figure. His playability was so enjoyable. And then you kind of look at like Barry Windham from Galoob, and it's like the same exact figure. Or you look at like Jerry Saggs from original San Francisco Toymakers, same exact figure. Same they realize the same play pose constantly. Then you kind of look at Hasbro, and you look at these figures, and they're basically the same type of pose with the, you know, with the right arm extension, with the wind up and everything, with the clothesline. Or you come back, you keep the hand closed. It's like a punch. The Hasbro, that's basically what they're doing here with these figures. It's basically creating the same type of pose. So even Hasbro, with their own type of figures, they're basically making the same type of figures. So yeah, when at one point when I completed that tournament and I came back and I was doing like a countdown, my top 10 favorite has or favorite LJN figures. Greg Valentine ended up being my number 5 favorite LJN. Now today, if I were to come back and do a top 10 favorite, do I think I'd keep Greg at number 5? I'd probably drop him down to like number 10 or something. Still a perfect figure, but because I put more emphasis on design and graphics and all that, guys like SD Jones, who I put at like number 10 once upon a time. SD Jones is like a number 1 figure, number 3, number 4, something like that. He shouldn't be number 10. So it doesn't mean I feel any less or worse about this figure. It just means that there are other things that go into my opinion that makes this figure fall further down the list. So I wouldn't rate it as high anymore, but it's still a perfect top 10 figure nonetheless. Greg Valentine, he also comes with a couple of variants. Now, I doubt you guys will be able to see on this camera, but when you look at this figure, notice that there is no belly button on this particular figure. So when I keep these figures on my shelf, anybody that's wondering why I keep multiple figures, they're just variants. So like this one is the belly button variant. The last one was the no belly button variant. So Greg Valentine himself comes with a couple different variations. Next one up is George the Animal Steel. Again, here is another late pickup. Again, you can always tell the release. If it's early 1985, it's during the actual release of Series 2, and it should be like a 13 back. If it's late 1985, it's probably just before the release of the 1986 Series 3 figures because they actually give you a bunch of Series 3 released characters. And here's another card that's kind of beat up and looks like it was like re-glued down or something. Actually, no, I think yeah, this is taped up. I taped this up. And a lot of time, I win a lot of these figures on auction. I don't even care like if they're coming off the bubble. If I win them for like $50 or something, I'd rather win it for $50, tape it down, and put it up on my shelf and have it displayed nicely than spend $350, $400 on these figures as a perfectly mint figure. And that was perfectly fine for me. When you're looking at it on the shelf, I mean, who could really tell the difference, right? Yeah, and this was a Woolworth $8. So when you look at guys like, King Kong Bundy and George Steele, I've never been a huge fan of those respective poses because I always go back to Lex Luger from Galoob. Now, obviously, these figures predate Lex Luger by like 5 years. If this came out in 85 and Lex Luger Galoob Series 1 came out in 1990. But I had the Lex Luger Galoob figure from childhood, so I played with that figure and it was terrible. I rate that figure right up there with, Ron Simmons Galoob, which I had and played with. And again, they were just not fun figures for play. You get them in like the double DDT, and that's basically all this figure does. You got to sit there and you got to kind of pretend to kind of throw punches like so. But that sucks. Or you got to pretend, and this is kind of like, your body slam type of deal. And I hate that. And you got to kind of do the same thing with King Kong Bundy. But aesthetically, overall, it looks spectacular. It would have been nice if these figures actually came with the actual original prototype with the colored hair built in, uh, with the darkened hair. And there are customizers who make the figure with the actual dark hair and everything. And I'm hoping to get a couple of those prototype customs made so that at the end of the show, after Series 6, I can actually make a prototype slash variant video for you guys. So I can have that for, for like a seventh video, eighth video, however many videos I have at the end. Because when you look at this figure and you look at his, his hair, they look like skin lesions or something. So it looks really bad. Just a few days ago, right after I posted my video for on Sunday for the magazine review video, which was the follow up to WrestleMania 2, right? I actually watched the entire WrestleMania 2 tape in its entirety. It's like a 2 hour tape. And I was surprised I actually sat there and stomached the entire thing. WrestleMania 2 was really bad. I mean, it was okay, but it was subpar. It wasn't great. It was bad. It was bad. Was it okay or was it bad? Why am I contradicting myself? It was watchable. I watched it straight through, so let's put it that way. Would I watch it again, ever again? Probably not. I might watch the Battle Royal again because I love that stuff, Battle Royals and Royal Rumbles, but that was like the only thing I enjoyed. The Macho Man versus George Steele match, like I had a feeling that was going to be a terrible, terrible match, and I never understood that stuff. Like, come on. Macho Man is like one of the greatest athletes, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I mean, I don't care if it's like Hulk Hogan as heel, bad guy Hulk Hogan. It's like watching Hulk Hogan run out of the ring because George Steele's coming at you. Or bad guy Andre the Giant running out of the ring because George Steele's coming at you. Good guy George Steele coming at you. It makes no sense. And that's like Macho Man's thing. Good guys coming at you. Up, gotta hop out in the ring. I'm scared. Macho Man could literally take anyone in WWF. What's he running from? That is so aggravating to watch that. And of course, he eventually chased the pins George Steele. I'm like you really need to. Oh, he drops the elbow on George Steele and George Steele kicks out. Like George Steele is not the type to kick out of freaking Macho Man's elbow drop. The Ultimate Warrior, okay, Hulk Hogan. Those are guys that are capable of kicking out. Who is George Steele to kick out of Macho Man's elbow drop? Come on. Uh, Funny thing about this, King Kong Bundy, again, is relatively the same figure. I love wrestling or utilizing the King Kong Bundy figure, but this, roughly the same figure, I can't use this. I guess I just don't know how to use this. It's kind of like the Brutus Beefcake Series 1 Hasbro. As a kid, I just didn't know how to use that figure, right? And I kind of feel like the same way because I never watched George Steele from childhood, so I didn't know anything about him or how he operated. So I just don't know how to use George Steele. And then we get to King Kong Bundy, and you guys know how I feel about big guys. And when I talk about, like at the time, my five figures that I absolutely had to have on card. Black card was important to me. It didn't matter which black card, just as long as I had a black carded figure. Theoretically, Big Boss Man, that was one I wanted the most. Big Boss Man, Series One. At the time, that was like Series One Hogan was like the two figures I absolutely had to have, and I wanted for a third figure, I wanted a big guy, something bulky, something heavy, and King Kong Bundy, absolutely. I felt like King Kong absolutely had to have a King Kong Bundy on card, and just the bulk and thickness of this card and the weight, just beautiful. So I absolutely guys like this. And then there was a point where when my mint and card collection started growing, and I was looking at the collection, and I'm like, what am I going for? Like, what am I really going for? Because those 5 cards turned into 10, which turned into 20, which turned into 30, and just kind of like really exploded. And I'm like, am I going for the figures that come with accessories? Am I going for the big bulky guys? Because I was getting Kamala and Ken Patera and Bundy and Steel and all of these big heavy guys, one man gang. So I was having like all these big heavy guys, but then I was having like all of these figures that came with accessories as well. So did I want the figures that came with accessories? Did I want the figures, the big bulky heavy guys? So, and of course, as I kept going and going, I'm like, oh, forget that. I'm going for everybody. I want the entire MOC collection. Right now, I think I'm like 3 figures away. Yeah, as at this current moment, the Series 5 two Hogans, white and red shirt Hogan on blue card. I got them both on black card, but I need them both on blue card. And Davy Boy Smith on individual card. That's it. Those are the 3 figures I need on single card. And of course, I said the the tag team sets that I need. But at least you guys know for the majority of the MOCs we'll be able to look at. So we talked about Greg Valentine being the most utilized character during my Royal Rumble matches. Bundy, one of the worst playable figures of the entire LJN collection, yet he was the second most utilized figure from my Rumble matches. I loved using this figure. This was so much fun. Here's the thing: Hulk Hogan, extra thin figure, but he had a perfect pose. I love the character, but he's a perfect figure. You enjoy using him. Big John Studd, he's like an enforcer type. Perfect pose, perfect weight, heavy, big, bulky. You enjoy using that figure. So it's like you don't want to use the figures that you're gonna enjoy. You want to pick up the figures like Roddy Piper, for example, or Iron Sheik. You don't you could tell by the pose that you don't enjoy those figures. So you want to use them as much as possible to see if hey, maybe if I use them enough, maybe I could start to enjoy them. And I think that's what happened with King Kong Bundy. And sure enough, he became one of my all-time favorite usable figures. Even with the bad play pose, because he's a big guy, heavy, with his rump kind of sits perfectly in your hand, perfect grip. And like I said, this guy is an absolute weapon. I mean, who needs a butcher knife or an axe or anything like that? You take one of these out, start beating someone to death with one of these. Clean them off, put them back on your shelf. Cops come to your house. Hey, who's gonna think to look at a toy for murder? Hey, don't take any ideas or don't get any ideas. Don't do that to Bundy. But King Kong Bundy again. Um, I actually thought King Kong Bundy would be like my top one of my top 10 favorite figures. But because again, LJN has so many great pieces, I couldn't fit him in my top 10. But I think he's like number 15 or something, 14 or 15 among my favorite LJNs. And think about that: a very plain, simple figure, all black figure, black singlet, no color or graphics, horrible play pose. Yet he is still in my top 15 favorite LJNs ever, which speaks volumes for this particular piece. King Kong Bundy LJN is absolutely amazing. So even a bad play pose can give you a lot of enjoyment. And have you guys seen my custom Bundy LJN? The one that takes over the SD Jones arm positioning? You put that again, you take that custom, and if LJN had made that figure with this body pose, I mean, that could have been the most. That probably is the most perfect figure ever made. If only that would was original. Bundy is number. Where we at? Number 5. Last figure of the day. Don't call him Paula. Paul Orndorff. So when I create my shelves or do my spacing on my shelves, I don't mean use Andre the Giant or anything like this. Paul Orndorff. I don't use a ruler or anything like that. No, I use Paul Orndorff as my figure of choice to do my spacing. As long as Paul Orndorff has good spacing on each shelf, that's I know I got perfect spacing between each shelf because they made this figure so extra tall. And you kind of look at you look at Paul Orndorff, and then you look at Greg Valentine and Brutus Beefcake, super tall. And the tag teams for like the Killer Bees are made super small. Well, not super small, but they're made smaller. You made the Dream Team extra tall, but you made Killer Bees smaller. I think they may have made Strike Force a little bit smaller ish. No, not really. I mean, Strike Force is relatively big figures or average size comparison. Killer Bees aren't like super tiny or anything, but I guess they're a little bit smaller ish. I'm kind of looking at them right now. They're kind of lined up perfectly with the Heart Foundation. So maybe not so much. Um, I know the British Bulldogs are a little bit smaller, but Dynamite Kid in real life was a lot smaller than your average wrestler. So I mean that made sense. Yeah, here's another re-release later on in the year. And Paul Orndorff. Here's the thing with Paul Orndorff. A lot of people they take Paul Orndorff and they customize the heck out of this figure. And normally when they customize Paul Orndorff, it's usually powers of pain. Like I myself have powers of pain and customs where they take Paul Orndorff and they create the Warlord. I have a custom where they take Paul Orndorff and they create Rick Rude. Some people, I'm sure, don't know if I have one. I don't think so, but I'm pretty sure people have taken Paul Orndorff and created customs where they have created the Ultimate Warrior. So, because of his ripped body and everything, I can understand Rick Rude. Like I said, my Rick Rude custom taken from Paul Orndorff, it makes a lot of sense and it's perfect. Ultimate Warrior, because of the ripped body and everything, makes a lot of sense. But Warlord, I don't know. Warlord is like again in the arms, crazy muscular, but in the abs and everything, I don't know. He just seems a little bit, I don't want to say chunky, but a little bit huskier. So I don't think he has like the ripped abs and everything for a Warlord. So I think Warlord was probably a bad choice to make out to turn Paul Orndorff into Warlord. But the figure itself, it's arms up. I'm generally not a fan of this pose, right? When you look at Macho Man, right? When Macho Man is like so, I don't like the LJN Macho Man like this. Macho Man LJN is, in my opinion, out of 70 plus, almost 80 figures, Macho Man is like a number 45 to 50 best figure. And I think I'm being generous. He might even rate lower than that. Uh, not a good figure. Or Sting from Galoob. Not a good figure. One of the out of 30 or 31 figures from Galoob, Sting is like 24, 25 best figure out of 30 plus 30 31 figures. So I don't like those figures like that. I don't like when the arms are straight up. Like it makes no sense. I mean, is this? I mean, honestly, can you? I'm just kind of looking at this. I mean, can you do anything with this? I mean, Body Slam looks pretty good Body Slam wise. Uh, I don't know. Maybe it's below average playability. I think as a kid you could still make it serviceable. I mean, even the Macho Man figure you could still make as a serviceable figure. Don't get me wrong. It's not horrendous. It's not the worst thing ever. It's a average to below average figure, but it could have been done just slightly better. Open up the arms a little bit. No, I think if they lowered the arms a little bit, again, kind of made it more like pull this arm a little bit forward, made it more like Hulk Hogan. This could have been a perfect figure. And again, my Paul Orndorff figure with the macho with the Hulk Hogan body. They could have kept all of this. All they had to do was move these arms just a little bit. So slight moderations or slight modifications here and there could have made a below average figure to average to way above average. But it's a Paul Orndorff, and I'm sure Paul Orndorff fans and wrestling fans of the '80s would have absolutely went crazy over this. So, um, as part of the collection, I really can't hate on it. Not really. And for Series Two, 47 minutes, not bad at all. So that is the Series Two run. Man, 47 minutes. I'd really want to do more figures, but now I'm gonna stop here, guys. Next week we are gonna look at. I'm trying to think if I should just kind of knock out managers next week and then do part of the wrestlers, like maybe do like tag managers and tag teams, or mm, no, I'm gonna keep it with the way that it's situated on the shelf. So I'll probably do like 8 figures, maybe 9, because I'm seeing a lot of duplicates. Like let's see, because there's like 3 different variants I'm seeing of Jesse Ventura. Obviously, 3 variants of uh of Corporal Kirchner, 3 variants of Jimmy Hart. So I might only do 8. Tag team set of the Bulldogs. So that's gonna probably stretch out the video even longer. We'll see. But Series 3 is gonna be 2 videos, and Series 4 might also be 2 videos. Series 5 might be 2 videos, but more than likely, probably not. I might do Series 5 in one video. Series 6 will definitely be one video, and then I will do all the variants in one video. And if I have prototypes by then, we will do a prototype video. And I will also keep the show going, and I will do the LJN Bendies, and then I will follow that up with all of the LJN Thumb Wrestlers. So I will also include those in the show as well. So the show is going to go a little bit longer with the Bendies and the Thumb Wrestlers. After that, we'll move on to the AW Remcos. So kind of give you a heads up what to expect over the course of the next probably 2 months of LJN shows. All right, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take care, everybody.